Hi there, I'm Katya.
Good night, everyone. Please let me know if you're seeing me and if you are hearing me.
Yes, I can see and hear you properly.
Okay, awesome,
Yes, I
awesome.
can see and hear you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. so much. All right, so thank you once again for joining us for another session. We are in week 4. Time flies so quickly. April just started, and look at where we are now. And once again, thank you for joining us for week 4. While we, continue under the theme standing with survivors, support, care, and understanding. And this is a very good theme to go under because we need to support our survivors. But once again, you guys know the drill. Before we start, we have to invite God's presence, because without Him, this seminar, it would not be possible. So I'm going to share my screen once again, and I pray that you'll be blessed despite all the circumstances. Okay. Oh, my name is Tashkana Roach, and I am your host for this evening. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. The sun is gone. All right. Okay. Let me know if you're hearing me.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchased of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above, echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story. This is my song. Oh yeah, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. And I'll keep praising Him. I'll keep lifting Him.
All right. So just like how she has her story, so does survivors, and it is important for us to be attentive when they're telling the story, because it's very difficult to open up about certain things that they have been through. Now, the Bible reading is taken from Galatians 6, and we'll be reading from verses 2 to 3. And it says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves." So here, God is reminding us that we should be our brother's keeper. We should help each other with whatever we're going through. If it's supposed to listen, if it's to follow them to the police station, if it is to follow them to the counseling center, whatever they want us to do, it's our duty, as Christ would say, to help them lift that burden. Now, please close your eyes wherever you are as we go to God in prayer. Lord, and Heavenly Father, as we come before you, Lord, I want to thank you for all that you have done. Lord, we are in week 4 and we could not have done it without you. God, tonight we'll be touching on a really sensitive topic. And Lord, I pray that you'll be with the listeners and also the presenter. Lord, I pray that you allow her to speak with power and with understanding, dear God. I pray that everyone will be able to understand the concept and also pass it on to their friends, their family members, and even a stranger. Lord, I pray against whatsoever the enemy has in store for us tonight, because we declare victory in your name. Lord, for those who are struggling, it doesn't have to be sexual violence, but whatsoever they're struggling with, dear God, I pray that you'll give them a sense of peace, dear God. Pray that you remind them that you'll never leave them nor will you forsake them, and that you love them despite of their situation, despite of how they feel, dear God. You love them. Lord, I pray that you'll continue to be with us. I pray that tonight's session will be a success, dear God, as we invite your presence once more. All of this I ask, dear Heavenly Father, and I call it done in Jesus' mighty and precious name. Amen. Amen and amen. All right, so we're on to the icebreaker. And tonight this is a very small icebreaker, and I want to hear from everybody. I won't be able to see the screen if you do type, but if someone could read, that would be wonderful. But if you want to open a mic, go right ahead. We will not bite you or nothing. We're here to listen and to support. All right, so this icebreaker is I feel supported when. All right, and you will finish it with your words. So you'll tell us what or when you feel supported. An example is on the screen. So I would say I feel supported when someone listens to me without judging, or I feel supported when someone hugs me without asking. Right? So it doesn't matter if it's small or if it's something big, just be honest and share. So who would like to go first? No one? Okay, go ahead. You're breaking up a bit. Okay, she's gone. Anyone else? Let me check the chat. Okay, nobody. It doesn't have to be big, it can be something small. Okay, go ahead, Miss Clark.
Right. Good evening, everyone. I feel supported when someone smiles at me and say, "You've got this."
Into that. I like that one. A small can go a far way, to be honest. You don't need to have money. You can always give a smile and you'll brighten someone's day. Anybody else? You guys don't feel supported when somebody does something for you? All right. Okay. All right. I feel supported when someone, this is from Miss Peter. I feel supported when someone knows I'm off, even if I say I'm fine. That's a good one. You know that the person really knows you. All right. I feel supported when someone tells me they understand. Just by saying that goes a far, far way. Yes, Mr. Wright, you can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I feel
Okay.
supported when someone takes the time out to listen and to share with an activity or a concern that I have.
That's a good one. I like that one as well. You see, just by simply listening, it goes a far way. People feel seen, they feel heard. You don't need to give them gifts in order for them to feel supported or seen. Now, this is from Tania. She said, I feel supported when I accomplish something and somebody recognizes it. See, just by feeling seen, being seen, or being heard, you feel supported. Miss Francis, she said that I feel supported when someone checks upon me without me having to reach out first. That's also a good one. Support, support, support. Your presence is much more than physical gifts. Your words mean much more than physical gifts. And just by listening, it means so much more to others. So thank you for participating in our little icebreaker. So now we know how each of us, and it's also a reflective activity as well. You know how you, and you can also pass it on in your relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic, but with your friends, communicate with them how you feel supported and they will practice it. No, at this moment in time, I know that you guys are ready to receive the information and to know how to support survivors or how you would want to be supported if you are a victim of sexual abuse. Now, before I hand over to our speaker, I would like to invite Ms. Douglas to the stage to welcome our speaker for this evening.
Good night.
Mm.
All right, so our speaker for this evening is Miss Danya Watson. Miss Danya Watson is a final year counseling major at Northern Caribbean University, NCU, with a strong passion for supporting the emotional, social, and personal development of others. Throughout her academic journey, she has demonstrated a commitment to growth, self awareness, and the practical application of counseling skills in real world settings. Danya is dedicated to continuous learning and strives to make a meaningful impact in the lives of those she serves. Guided by strong values and a faith centered perspective, she approaches individuals with compassion, empathy, professionalism, and integrity. Her interests include working with children and adolescents while creating safe and supportive spaces for individuals to express themselves. Let's welcome Miss Danya Watson.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Okay. Oh, I'm trying to share my camera. Oh, I want to share. No. Okay. Wait, I just saw it. Oh, okay.
If you're not able to find the camera, Miss Watson, it's fine.
Just share my screen.
Okay. All right.
No, I was trying to share my screen.
Oh, okay.
Are you seeing it?
No, I am.
Okay, saying something went wrong. Am I on?
All right. So while Miss Watson brings up her screen, how How is everyone doing? I didn't do a check-in. How rude of me. How's everybody doing? You can send a thumbs up. If you're good, a thumbs down. If you're not feeling well. All right. Yes, Miss Cranbrook. Okay. Okay. You can go ahead, Miss Cranbrook. Okay, you're doing well. Good. I am excited. I'm always excited when the seminars begin. Uh, but yes. And Miss Watson, you can send it to me, and then you can begin.
Okay. My apologies. So Okay, so good night, everyone. My apologies for the difficulties that was happening. So tonight we'll be talking about continuing on our team. Speak Up Jamaica, breaking the silence on sexual violence. Tonight I will be focusing on standing with survivor support, care, and understanding. So when we talk about sexual violence, we're referring to how it affects individual, families, community, you know, how we can give them support and care for those individuals. Survivors, they need our understanding. They don't just need us to be there, but they need us to understand what they went through. And oh, not in a way like, oh, I understand that what you went through, it might be hard, but you have to be empathetic when you're being there for them because they went through something traumatic. So we have to be there. And the reality of this in Jamaica, it is very, very sad because sexual violence, it remains a very serious issue in Jamaica. Did you know that about 1 in 4 children and adolescents, roughly around 23%, they experience sexual violence? Did anybody know that? And there have been hundreds of thousand cases that have been reported each year. Not just each year, in recent year. And this is issues very closer than what we think. Even in our communities, we have persons who are being affected. Because before we talk support, we have to understand, the reality of not just the world, but also our country. It is important, that we understand what is actually going. And
All right, so
there's a question. Let me read the question. Okay. Okay, so I'm seeing someone, first name Abraham, asks a question: does the stats correlate to the number of suicide among adolescents? And that is a very important question for us to think about. Okay, so Miss First, what do you think about? Do you think that the stats correlate to the number of suicide among adolescents? Does anybody want to share before I give my answer? Okay. Okay.
let me try this. I would say no, because in years past, there are many children who never reported it. So the percentage that you have, it could have been correlate with the number of suicides among adolescents.
Can you? Well, I believe that it does correlate. Like they have it plays a role. No. Oh,
And so I think Miss Watson bumped off, but to pick up from where she left off. So she was saying that there are many cases that are never reported. So based on the database of what they have, what the government has, it says that there's over 2,100 children that were affected in sexual violence, right? And over 3,000 sexual offenses against children are reported. Now, this number doesn't mean that it is exact, it's just an estimate. So, as I said, these are not the statistics, they represent real people. So, despite the numbers, these are actual people that were actual children, might I add, that were affected by sexual violence.
thank you, Miss Roach. I'm back on. And to add to what you're saying, it is not a simple, one-to-one answer. Yes, sexual violence does play a major risk for, for suicidal thought and suicide, behaviors among adults, but it interacts with, other variables, mental health, the support system, the stigma, how their family is. And we have so many other more variables, that plays a role into this. Because, and I'll touch on it later, sexual abuse, sexual trauma, it affects person in many different ways. And there is no right way to respond to trauma. So we have some of the emotional response that someone who has been through sexual with trauma, what assault may feel. They might have fear, they might anxiety or panic, they might feel shame, they might blame themselves, they might feel angry, they might feel frustration, they might feel being confusion or denial, and some might, become numb, and some might withdraw from, society, from their family. So, one of the reasons, because they went through something, so they might be fearing to be around persons, when if they see their assaulter in public, they might get, anxiety. This might, they see someone who might re- from the might resemble the person who attacked them, so they might, get a panic attack, they might become panic, they start to sweat, they start to hyperventilate, and that can lead to, them, blaming themselves. Oh, what, this happened to me because of this. Well, it there are so many different ways, and they might feel shame, and a lot of the persons feel shame because they're, you know it's how society, might make them feel shame for, for being the, and I'll touch on it more when we go into victim blaming. I think the victims are meant to feel shame and feel, the blame, rather than the person who assault them. And, you're like, they might become so angry and so frustrated at themselves, like, how could I let this happen to me? You know, I was I am such a person. Like, how could something so traumatic, so bad happen to me? And some person, become angry and frustrated. Some might become confused and go into a state of denial, and that leads to numbness. They become numb. to feelings, so everything around them, and they just withdraw. If it's someone who is so active in school and community, you don't see them anymore. They are not no longer participating. And there is no right way to react to trauma. Every survivor response is different, but while it is different, it is valid. And we have to respect that. Each person, while they might have gone through a similar thing, it might have been with the same person. Each survivor, each victim, their experience is valid. And we have to remember, and that person, you can say, Samantha went through the same thing that you went through. Samantha is not behaving how you are behaving. We have to remember each person is different. Each person experienced trauma different. And so we move into victim blaming. And victim blaming is defined as when the victim of a crime or abuse is partially or entirely responsible for the harm they experience rather than the perpetrator. They are blamed. And some example of this is, somebody saying, "Oh, what were you wearing? Why were you there so late? You should have known better. You should have known that this was going to happen. Why were you out at night? She must have provoked him. You must have done something. Why didn't you speak up sooner? Oh, you must have been drinking. Or some other, you must have been out with, bad company, because why did this happen to you?" And a lot of the times, it's not, there are so many scenarios where it's the person are covered from head to toe and they have still been assaulted. And so I want to ask you, does anybody know any other statements, victims have heard other than the one that I mentioned and the one that you're seeing on the slide where you heard person saying to victim, the victims are survivors. Does anybody know any more statements?
Miss Watson, I know of like when small children get abused, they always say that the child is force right and they want it.
I heard that before too, Miss Roach.
There are some in the
Yes.
chat.
Did you say no? Take accountability. Yes. And they're never asking the perpetrator these questions. It is always the victim, especially when the victim is a young lady, especially when it's somebody underage. Or this another one that I heard of is the person saying, "Oh, she forced right. Why is her mother letting her dress like that? She should have been at church. Why were you not at school?" Yes, and there's so many others. And these things can lead to back to what I was mentioning, the survivors, blaming themselves or feeling shame or them becoming numb and withdrawing. Because if you've been through something like this and somebody will come to you and saying, "Oh, what were you wearing? Oh, everything happens for a reason," or "God wouldn't have had this happen to you," or "Why didn't you speak up earlier?" That could lead to you becoming angry and frustrated. And then when you become angry and frustrated, they are going to say, "Oh, why are you behaving this way?" Or another one is like, "Oh, you did want it. And just because I'm never the person you want it with, you just, you're coming out and being tell it." And there's another one is that, "Oh, you're telling a lot of time person come out and share their stories and person saying, 'Oh, you're lying,' or such and such person, he wouldn't do that." Exactly, he wouldn't do that, or she wouldn't do that, especially when it is somebody in the community, as we call it, a stalwart, a big figure, whether it is in your community, in your church, in schools. "Oh, that person would never do that." Yes, and it's so true, Miss Brown. They are more worried about the man's future than the little girl, than the girl. And a lot of times, it's not just men who are worried, it is women and women who are blaming these young girls, or even person who are being abused. And that is something that makes me so sad. And this is why, why understanding matters. We have to remember, and I have to emphasize on this, that trauma affects person differently. And, direction may change over time. Like, it could have happened to you from 2020, and you just share your story now because, you've been to therapy, you have healed. Yes, especially if the person who assaulted you is a friend, is someone very close to you. And I was in a meeting I think the other day, and it was stated that a lot of times the victim, they know the perpetrator, and it's someone it's like 95, I believe it was like, the statistics is not the person, this is not really the statistic, it's like 90 or 80% of the time somebody that they know and somebody that they're close to, or somebody that their parents are close to, especially somebody from your little child. So we have to be supportive. When you're supportive, it aids in healing. And we have to remember, persons take, some person will heal, say that they're healing in like 6 months. Some person needs 6 years. Some person needs 2 years. So healing is very different for everybody. And we negative response, those negative responses coming, oh, you're lying, he will never do that. What were you when you were drinking? Oh, you should have known. Say, you should have known better. Those negative response, they can further cause harm. And it is important for us to know, bad things can happen to everyone, even you, even me, because if you think about it, the world that we live in, it's not fair, and it's not fair. It becomes more and more apparent as we, every day, because anybody can fall a victim to tragedy. Like, yes, my friends, the person that I live with, they can become a victim tomorrow. We don't know what might happen. My family, you know, or the loved ones. It doesn't matter how cautious you are or conscientious you are. It doesn't matter what you wear. Bad things can happen, and a lot of times it happens to good people. And these things, there's this tendency to blame the victim. It stems, in part from our the need to believe that the world is, fair, and it's a fair and just place. And when something bad happens, to another person, as somebody mentioned, the person gonna say, "Oh, everything happens for a reason." You have to trust God. God wouldn't have let this happen to you if it wasn't for a reason. Oh, this happened to somebody before you, you're not the first person. We are, these things, sometimes it often leads to person believing that they must have done something to deserve, such a fate, such trauma, such, that shame, that burden to carry. And there are social psychologists, they refer to this as the tendency, this, thing, as a tendency, this tendency, sorry, as the just world phenomenon. And question, why do we feel that, why do you think people feel this need to believe that the world is just and fair, and that people get what they deserve? So you repeat the question. Why do you think people feel like there's this need to believe that the world is fair and it's just, and that people get what they deserve? They're hoping. And that is actually true. A lot of persons are dealing with, unhealed childhood, not just childhood trauma, things that they don't talk about. So instead of, healing and dealing with what they're going, their personal and emotional and everything within them, they're going to put it out into the world and put it on other persons. Well, the first thing when you hear something bad happens, someone you're going to say, "Oh, it must have happened to happen for a reason." Does anybody else want to share? Okay. So to add more, because understanding matters because these emotional response, it is important because it shapes not just how we treat ourselves, but how we treat the victims and the survivors. Trauma doesn't look the same for everyone, as I mentioned, and reaction change over time. As you grow, as you heal, your reaction toward the situation, toward the person who harmed you is going to change. So when we respond with understanding, we're supporting their healing. But when we respond with judgment, we causing further harm. And that is something that we have to remember. To always show empathy. It doesn't take a lot for us to be empathetic to someone going through something. But if someone comes to you and shares something that is so hard, sometimes it is so hard for a person to open up about being sexually abused and that somebody is coming. Just be empathetic. Just listen to the person what they have to say. Okay, so to continue on the impact of victim blaming on survivors. So victim blaming, it has serious not just psychological but emotional and social consequences, and these include increased trauma. The survivors, they may experience deeper feeling of shame, guilt, and self-blame. And there's reduced reporting, the fear of being blamed sometimes discourage survivors from seeking help and reporting the crime. And it affects, their mental health, and it contributes, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and it lowers a person's self-esteem. Okay, does anybody want to share some other ways sexual abuse affects a victim, a survivor, mental health? These are just I just have shared a few. Yes, it's always something that they will have to carry with them. And this leads when when they get low self-esteem and they become depressed, it leads to them becoming isolated, and they're going to withdraw from their social circle due to fear of judgment, not feeling supported, and being isolated from your social circle, your people. And that at times I'm seeing, yes, random anxiety attack and also random panic attack. You just sometimes persons are just somewhere in my seats, just randomly get panic attack. And when you're not around that support system, your support system, it delays your healing, and your recovery is hindered when survivors are not validated or feeling supported. And I'm seeing Miss Brown sharing that in the chat that they can, yes, they can have a flashback and trigger moments, and these can happen at any given time. The person can, the victim can just be doing something as simple as brushing their teeth, making a meal, and they just the flashback just come back to of that moment that something was taken from them without their permission. And then it goes back to, the judgment, and then, the judgment person are going to give. And sometimes these judgment from person, oh, you might have wanted it, it wasn't from who you wanted, might have triggered the flashback. Yes, a lot of time, you see maybe it was the color of the outfit that you're wearing, and it triggers something, and it brings it all back. Or sometimes it's somebody who resembles the person, and you don't think it would. You're brushing your teeth, you don't think you're gonna have a flashback of what is probably the most traumatic thing that have ever happened to you. And I'm seeing Miss Brown saying, so they might think they're ready for something, but that yes, they think yes, you might think that, oh yes, I'm over it, I am healed. I'm ready to, to go back into the world to start socializing again. And it's something you just go to the supermarket and somebody bumps on you, and you just you get an anxiety attack or a panic attack, and you just in, get that flashback, and it can happen anywhere and at any given time. Yes, a lot of us, and that is very true. Physical contact is a trigger, and coupled with something as simple as hugging, y- and crowded space too. And so we continue with the effects of blaming the victim. So victim blaming contributes to the stigma, the shame, and self-blame. And it to continue, as we were mentioning about in the impact, it discourages persons from seeking help, and it focuses on the victim behavior rather than the assailant action, especially if the person is caught at what's the word? No. Those persons who are very social, and they say, oh, if you never did so, if you weren't so social, like, this wouldn't have happened to you. Yes, so extroverted. Thank you, Miss Rose. And victim blaming, it can be devastating to people who have been harmed, by crimes, disasters, assault and trauma. It contributes to so many different things. And I'm seeing Miss Brown saying it mainly can prevent the victim from getting any form of help and justice. And that is so true. As we mentioned it early, a lot of these cases they go unreported. And a particular fragrance or music can, yes, that is so true. And or sometimes also a particular TV show, or there's so many different things that can be a trigger. And these things, persons giving you judgment, blaming the victim, it silences the victims a lot of the time. And we were mentioned it earlier, but we have to enforce it. And these things contribute to mental health problems, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and suicidal ideation. And it also contributes to rape culture, because if you, as a perpetrator or assailant, you are, raping these, you are doing all these things, and you realize you're not getting arrested, you're going to become brave, and this is oh, I'm going to continue doing it. It's going to boost them up. Oh yes, I did this to this, that, and it contributes to rape culture. So it's like they know that they're going to get away with it because of the stigma around it. The victim is not going to speak up, so they're like, oh, like, already I got away with this 5 times, oh, I can do it again. And I'm seeing that Miss Brown saying, because stuff like that, it can happen, can and will affect years future relationship, especially intimate ones. And I'm seeing that Miss Roach mentioned that it boosts them up to continue. Yes, it does. And I'm seeing Miss Brown mention that romantic partner will also have to cope with this victim blame, and will also deprive them from the ability to trust anyone anymore. And this will stop they will stop trying to seek help. And I'm seeing Brown, Miss Brown saying, also when others do not make their position known on the subject, it creates a safe space for the perpetrator to hide and feel safe. It creates an environment for them. Because, and then I'm seeing Miss Gabriel Brown saying, because they assume no one will be willing to help or understand what they're going through. And that is so true. Because if nobody is speaking up about it, you won't know that your neighbor or a classmate have went through the same thing that you have. And that is so true, and that is the reality of the world that we are living in. Yeah, yes, they will be not judged, they will be blamed, they will be shamed. Especially those persons who like to wear clothes that show skin are those bodycon outfit, they are going to be judged unfairly at that. Or if you weren't wearing those type of clothes to, entice this person. And I'm seeing that Miss Brown mentioned clothing is always a major talking point. So how can we combat blaming the victim? So while I was doing research for this, it was mentioned that the reality is that most persons probably have engaged in victim blaming at some point or another, sorry, and you may have dismissed someone experience and believe that it was their own fault. However, there are things that you can do to help prevent it in the future. Yes, I heard about that website. And I'm seeing Miss Clay mention it's sad that victims are the only one who suffer from what was not their fault. And that is so true. The victims are blamed, they're judged, they're shamed, they develop various mental health. And I'm seeing that Miss Brown mentioned there's a website called What Were You Wearing made for this specific reason, and it showed clothing wear by victims of sexual violence and their onesies on their baby. See, it is so the reality of the world that we're living in is so sad. It is so sad. So to continue, some things that we can do is to listen to others' experience without judgment, validate others' experience, and let them know that you are listening. We have to challenge the narrative when you hear other persons make statement that blames the victim and make the perpetrator feel that they are safe. You have to tell them that, what you're saying, it's not right. You're not supposed to be supporting these individuals who are going around harming persons. And we have to remind the survivors that what happened to them, it's not your fault. It is not. It is very important we have to remind them that what happened, it was not their fault. Because they're already blaming themselves, and then to add someone else, blaming them, you have to be that person to remind them that what happens to them is not their fault. And then we have to focus on holding these perpetrators accountable for their action. If you live in a community and you know that Tom has been abusing members of the community, go and report it. We have to stop protecting these individuals for their action. And we have to consider how blaming contributes, discrimination against people based on their sex, gender identity, gender expression, race, and sexuality. A lot of times, the women, they are always going to be discriminating the women. Oh, it is your fault. What were you wearing? Why were you out? Sometimes the person, they're going to somewhere as simple, you're coming from church, you're going to the supermarket to get something as simple as a bucket of water, and it happens to you. And yes, Miss Mackenzie, it is 100% the perpetrator's fault. And yeah, sometimes the victims are held back because the person they were victimized is That is so true. The person is in power are well respected. Sometimes they don't feel like they can go to the police station because maybe the perpetrator is a police officer, or maybe it's someone who is close to the police, so they don't feel safe yeah going to the police. And like, oh, miss, like the teacher who the student went to. Hmm, because you see, persons are going to protect their friends, and yes, they're gonna say, oh, I know this. That's my friend. My friend would never. See, we're seeing the examples, in the chat, and because they're like, oh, my friend would never, and you don't know what your friend is doing. I'm seeing Miss Clark is hand is up. Mrs. Clark, you can go ahead, Carrie.
Right, thank you,
Hey,
Miss
thank you.
Wilson. I'm hearing myself as
I'm
well.
hearing myself.
Yeah, anyhow,
Um,
what you're saying
what
is,
you're saying is,
sorry, I'll try to
sorry, I'll
type
try
it
to
because
type
I'm
this
hearing
because
an
I'm
echo.
hearing the echo.
Don't know why.
Walk away.
Right, let me try
Let
again.
me try again. Okay. Oh, wait, let me turn off my mic. Maybe that's why you're hearing it. Okay, Carrie, you can go ahead. I'm gonna turn off my mic. So,
All right, thank you. Good evening again, everyone. I am enjoying the presentation and good information so far. The culture of blaming the victim. Hopefully, one day we'll get past that. As you shared, I just remember an encounter I had recently where someone was sexually abused and shared it, was brave enough to share it. And the person she shared it with blamed her. He said, no, like, let me see, there's no man on here. Said, John, let's say his name is John. No, John would never do something like that. And John is so cute. John is so popular. Why would he want somebody like you? And that sent the person almost into that made the person suicidal, where they actually made an attempt on their life. So the way we blame the victim, we really need to look at that and at the things that we see. And sometimes we say it in good faith, as you were saying, if there's any such thing, as you were saying earlier. So, okay, it has happened to others before, not making the situation any better, not realizing that what we're doing is more harm than good. So, just agreeing with you and giving you that example. Somebody almost losing their lives because they chose to share. They were vulnerable enough to share with someone, and that's what the person said.
and thank you, Carrie, for sharing. That is also something that happens a lot of times. S- There are scenarios that persons go and share what happens to them and they lose their life. So I'm seeing Miss Brown is saying, when it's a woman, she must have done something to deserve this. When it's a man, he probably enjoyed it. It's stuff like this that always get in. And I could not agree more with what you said, Miss Brown. And I'm seeing Miss Rose saying they love to spend their lives for the perpetrator, not knowing what they do behind closed door instead of listening and believing the victim, which makes it so sad. And I'm seeing Miss Beckford hand raised. You can go ahead, Miss Beckford.
Hi, good night,
Hi, good
everyone.
night, everyone. Good night.
See.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
I was
I
thinking
was
that
thinking that
one of the things
One
that
of
we
the
could
things that we
do
could do
is
is
to
to
reorient
reorient
ourselves,
ourselves,
reorient the
reorient the
questions we
questions
ask
we ask
of
of
victims
victims
in
uh,
order
in
to
order to
support.
support.
I'm hearing
I'm
myself,
hearing
so
myself,
it's a
so it's
little distracting. All right, I'll type my response in the, okay, this is better. Right. I was thinking that, just to ask ourselves without in some questions, not to first go to, what the person word, what the person said, or what they did. Um, but we have to think that within our culture that at all times we try not to cause harm. Many of us on online, we claim to be religious or Christians, and the whole aspect of loving your neighbor as yourself and doing to others as they would have, um you would do, that sort of, if we seek to have that type of mindset where we our first instinct is not to interrogate what's happening, but to, in a very careful way, think about what actually happened to the person and how it is, what it is that we can do to help. So in my mind, we have to reorient ourselves. We have to have a change in mindset about how we view victim. We cannot start with the questions about how and what the person was wearing, etc., but to look, change the culture of asking why did the perpetrator do this instead of going the other way. Thank you.
Miss Watson, your mic is off.
I was just going to respond and say she made such a good point of reframing the question to ask why did the perpetrator did that instead of why blaming the victim. And this is what we want. And I'm seeing Miss Watson sharing that addressing victim blame is breaking the silence around sexual violence. Families, communities are in most cases aware of the violence but choose to remain silent. Silence protect the perpetrator. In Jamaica, there's an epidemic of silence, especially as it relates to girl child sexual abuse that is normalized by institutions that are supposed to protect. The outcome of cases from the silence, the way police treat survivors, silence is institutionalized, and that's where we need to start. And I agree, we need to start with silence. And I'm seeing Miss Brown saying there's a thing called survivor's guilt, where someone who survived war will regret being the one who survives. This could apply to someone who was close to a victim of sexual violence. They might regret the fact that it would happen to someone and not them. It's a situation where it was just as likely to happen to them. And Miss Roach is agreeing with Miss Brown. And I'm seeing Miss Brown mention again, or they might be upset that they didn't prevent this from happening, especially a parent who didn't listen to their child and then find out it's worse than they thought. And I'm seeing Miss Brenna Brown saying, yes, because too often victims share their story and immediately get questioned like a criminal. Can we talk about that? When you're there are beat when you're sometimes you even in movies too we see when the victim is sharing their story, they are getting interrogated. the person that's sharing it, a lot of times they're not listening. It's like you're asking question. I saw someone hands raised. The person who raised your hand just a few seconds ago. Do you still want to share?
Yes, can you hear
Yes,
me?
can you hear?
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yes. So, one of the things I try to really understand, especially when it comes on to mothers, right? Whenever their children, their daughter express that they are being abused, and instead of supporting, instead they are told, "Ah, because of how you dress, and you love too much man, and you push on yourself and this and man, you're and I'm like, they just completely miss the point that the child was violated and that this is a child. So we need to look at the person who has done the act, the man, instead of the big grown man who has done this. And a man that a grown man that made the choice to actually harm a child and to sexually violate that child. So no behavior, no clothing, no words are from a child can ever justify that act of a child being sexually molested by a grown man or even like a boy of any sort, right? Because children are still developing and learning. They are not in a position of power or responsibility in these situations. And it always puzzles me when I hear mothers, they they just disregard everything that the daughter is saying or whatever, and instead of focusing on protecting their child and holding the abuser fully accountable. They just shift the blame to their daughter. I just find it. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know how how we can even stop this, because even when you tell them that the child, wouldn't be cognizant of certain things and blah blah blah, they just being ignorant. The parent is just being ignorant, not listening. So it's really sad. That's my
Okay. Miss Carrie, you can go ahead and I'll share my response.
All right, to Miss R. I'm not sure what your name is. I'm only seeing R. Sorry, and everybody else. Do you think this is some sort of defense mechanism by the parent? Because it could be the case that, okay, your daughter tells you that she was sexually molested, and maybe it is that the mother blames herself, but rather than taking on the blame, you push it off on the daughter. Oh, it's because of what you wear. Or it's just trying to deny the whole situation as if denying it makes it any better. And many times, well, let me say, some of the times you find that the man who does it sometimes is the one that is bringing in the money, is taking care of the family. And you don't want that to go. So there's a choice that you make. Unconsciously, you're making a choice. The money and the support over my daughter, sadly, or over my child or over this child, because that's what's important to you. My son away, but that is what is important. Because if the daughter was the important one here, then you would have jumped on it. And sometimes we find that it's the case that, oh, it happened to me also, because in Jamaica, I forgot the statistics on it, but many persons have been abused, and those who have been abused find that sometimes their children get abused, and it's like the cycle is coming all over again, and oh gosh, why? So you try to deny it and push off everything to say, no, it never happened. And like she tell you something as if denying it makes it go away. So that could be an issue too. That could be one of the reasons, or some of the reasons.
Thank you, Miss Clark,
That
for
is
your
Thanks.
So you
So
have
you have
some
some.
clue.
Oh, Miss Rose, can you read the comments for me, please?
Okay, no problem. Alright, so Miss Mackenzie was saying that some of the mothers are also victims, which Miss Clark also mentioned. Caroline was saying that the culture of victim shaming is embedded and it will take quite a while for a change to take place. I agree. Like, what are the consequences? Are there even consequences? Miss Goodrich was agreeing that for sure, and Miss Mackenzie was basically agreeing with what Miss Clark said by stating that it's generational trauma. Your mic is close.
I was to what Mrs. Clark was saying, about the defense mechanism. A lot, a lot of time in several cases, the parent doing the victim blaming, it reflects, numerous forms of psychological defense mechanisms, such as denial, projection, where they struggle to process the trauma. And while these responses, it may reduce the person might see it as a way to reduce their emotional distress, it is significantly increasing the harm to the child, and it interferes so much with the healing process, and the child will not want to share it, and it is going to cause secondary trauma to that child, and it is not an appropriate or the protective response that our parents should give. And this might happen because the parents might be in emotional shock, and as someone mentioned in the chat, the parents might have experienced it, so it is bringing back that trauma for the parents, and the parents might feel the fear of social stigmatization and family shame. Do not bring any disgrace on the family, or if you're going to share this, you're going to bring disgrace on your family. And we talk about cultural conditioning around silence and reputation, especially when the perpetrator, is somebody who is in a high position, and the person might feel, powerless to confront the perpetrator or the system that is there. So how can we offer our support? We have to listen, we have to believe, we have to show, and we have to respect. So we have to listen without interrupting. We have to believe the survivor. Do not go and say, "Oh, yeah, a liar, till this never happened. Tom would never do this. I've known Tom from my eyes at my knee, before I was crawling. I have known Tom. Tom is not this type of man." You have to believe the survivor. It is so many times you have to believe the survivor. Are you like, yes, are you sure? You sure you're talking about my Tom? You're sure you're talking about Tom that we know? You have to believe the survivor. Unless, until there's evidence to say that even that the survivor is lying, we have to believe the survivor, and we have to show empathy and care. And we have to be patient with their pros. Everybody heals different. Everybody takes, I might take healing 6 months, but Miss Roach might take 2 years. We have to be patient with the process, and we have to respect a person's choice. While it might be hard, we have to respect the person's choice. The person might not want to share what they're going through today or tomorrow when you want them to share. So you have to respect their time frame that they take to heal. And so how do we change the system? And that is such a good question. We can start with stop blaming the victim. Yes, advocacy. We have to stop blaming the victim. We have to put the blame on the perpetrator, the assaulter, because it's not the victim's fault. It is always 110, 100,000% the perpetrator problem. We have to hold the perpetrator accountable. Yes, and these webinars are a very good start. We have to start by bringing awareness. We have to move from what did the victim do, what the victim wear, to why did the perpetrator choose to harm, and why was it allowed, and why was it continue to be allowed? Why is the community protecting this person? And this needs to be repeated. We need to have these, awareness, not just in schools, in churches, in our community, in the media, to allow have persons become more aware until it becomes sort of a default way of thinking. And we have to blame the perpetrator and not the victim. And we have to start from early start, primary prevention. We have to start from education from primary school, even as early as basic school. Because some a lot of victim blaming is learned so early, it's learned so easily, so prevention must start early. And I believe that, schools should normalize consent education, age appropriate. You have to teach persons, especially young boys, that no means no. We have to teach person to watch body language, because if you're saying to someone, "Oh, come give me a hug," and the person say no, and you come back again, and you're forcing yourself, and you see the person body language, and then person, "Oh, let me say yes to get this person to leave me alone." We have to teach person no means no, and we have to start at a very young age. No does not mean maybe. No does not mean tomorrow, next year. It means no. And do not try to coerce someone if they're saying, "Oh, I will give you this if you give me a hug, if you give me a kiss." No means no. Do not give anybody anything. Do not try to convince someone to say, "Oh, if you do this, I will bring you somewhere where you want to go." No means no. We have to teach person bodily autonomy, because no, I have to state my no means no. And we emotional literacy. We have to teach our young people, how to name their feelings and to validate their experiences. We have to report safety reporting. We have trusted adults. We have talked about confidentiality. Somebody cannot go and tell you that they were assaulted, and you go around and tell every single person in your WhatsApp. The person is sharing something that when happened to them, that is meant to be kept safe. The only person you should be sharing it is reporting the perpetrator. Do not go and gossip. It is not gossip. So we have to allow our children to grow up with these, frameworks. They are less likely when they grow up with these mentality. No one means no. They know their feelings, and they know how to validate not just their experience but others. And they know who trusted adults are, and they know that about confidentiality. Certain things are not gossip. They will grow up in a world that is less likely to blame the victim. And while we're talking about educating our children, we have to talk about parent education. And this is so important in Jamaica, because as was we were talking about earlier, many victim blaming attitudes comes from the parent. The parents are the one a lot of times doing the victim, blaming the child, because they were never taught trauma informed response. So we need to have some awareness seminars, webinars for parents to learn, because of our parents, they need practical guidance on how trauma affects children, such as how the children is going to freeze, they're going to silence, they're going to take a while to we have the delayed discourse, they're going to take a while to share what happened to them. Just because it happens to them today and they share it like next week or next month, you're going to ask them, "You sure this happened? You sure? You're sure that's something you want to make up?" You cannot. The parents need to know that it's not something that they should do. As a parent, your first response, it can determine whether the child heals or hide, or whether the child shares anything with you again. And we have to use the media and social media to make people think, because when you think about social media, a lot of things that we see on social media, we think it's normal. So we have to stop centralizing the victim behavior. We have to stop with this, what was she wearing? What was she drinking? Oh, it's not because it's because she didn't want this person, or because it wasn't the person that he wanted. We have to stop with this implying of this negativity, and we have to increase, survivor sensitive survivor centered reporting. And we have to start by highlighting the perpetrator accountability. We have to start holding them accountable. The only person that is responsible for abuse, sexuality, is the perpetrator, is the abuser. And we know we also have to strengthen our reporting system. We have to, because victim blaming, it is going to continue. It won't get any better. It's going to persist when you don't trust the system, because the perpetrator is some friend with the police. He's friend with the member of parliament. He's friend with this all person in various position. So we have to have confidential reporting part. We have to have trained and non-judgmental responders, and we have to have faster trauma informed care and investigation, and we have survivors protection from community backlash. Because if the system feels safe, the stigma is going to decrease. And everyday language, it must shift. Oh, she invited it, she wanted it, and we have to replace this with, he is responsible for his action. I'm not responsible for someone else's action. You are responsible for your action. And so why didn't she leave? We have to change that. Why was he abusing her? Why was he doing what he was doing? And like, oh, good girls don't do this. We have to remove this I like entirely from the discourse. Oh, good girls don't dress like that. Good girls don't go out at night. Good girls don't go out and drink and enjoy themselves. We have to remove that mindset entirely. And so, language, shapes the belief system. So, as a community, as a people, we have to chance victim blaming when it happens, and we have to support survivors instead of isolating them. And we have to hold the perpetrators, the abusers accountable, not just socially, but also legally. They have to face the consequences of their action, because silence is going to protect harm. And we have to think about, what is that doing, all of this doing to the victim? What is it doing to the survivors? Because when stigma change, it's, we have to think about it. What is this doing to them? Because right now, when persons are speaking out about being sexually abused, it often carries shame and blame and judgment. And when the system is changed, victim blaming becomes socially acceptable, because that's the norm now. So, to reduce victim blaming in Jamaica, we must shift the culture from protecting the reputation of the perpetrator. It doesn't matter if it is somebody of top position in the community or in the country. That we have to move from silence to accountability, and from questioning the victim to confronting the harm, the source, and the perpetrator. We have to put accountability on the perpetrator. And I've seen Miss Watson saying it's time to change what is being taught. It is time to stop sexualizing women. But it doesn't, and yes, and it doesn't matter what you could have been in a baggy outfit, and persons are still going to sexual. And there's this thing of, oh, you have to leave something to the imagination. We have to stop that. Another time it's like older women saying these things, and it is time, yes, teach self control and self to the, we have to teach that from a very young age. Person have to know the self-control and self-discipline. Okay, so what does this mean? So bad things can happen, and it will probably happen to you or me at some point in it. So the next time you find yourself wondering what someone did to bring this onto your life, we have to take a moment to consider, what the why was this happening? Not what they did, but why did the person do this to them? So rather than blame the victim, we have to put yourself in the shoes of the person, and we have to have a little more empathy. We have to have empathy, patience, and with confidentiality. This is not something that to gossip. So, what are some, things to say? What are some do's and don'ts? So, some things that we have to say is that I believe you. It's not your fault. I'm here for you. You're not alone. You cannot tell somebody, why didn't you report it earlier? And we go back to the what were you wearing? The are you sure? We have to avoid blaming, judging, or minimizing what someone went through. We cannot we do not force, do not speak on. We have to encourage and we have to respect. We have to. So, what are some self care for survivors? Rest, talk, engage, and we have to practice and seek. You have to rest. You have to rest, not just physically, but also emotional rest and recovery. It is so important. You have to try to talk to trusted individual. If you don't, you feel like your friends are not trusted. There are many The Ministry of Health has a hotline that you can call and you can talk to them. They're very non-judgmental. You can talk to them. It is trusted in they are trusted individual. They're trained. They have confidentiality. You can just share what you went through, and you have to engage in activities. To I don't want to say like reframe your mind. Is like you like think about what happens, but things that can calm your mind. Activities that you love and that you can find a way or something a new activity. And we have to practice several grounding things. And as I want to seek professional help if you are ready. It is an important times for you to survivors of sexual trauma, sexual abuse to seek professional help so that they can heal. And we have to, for some supporters, supporters have to acknowledge that yes, it is there, and the support your help, if your friend is going through this, you have to, it is going to also have an emotional impact on you. And this goes for both the survivors and the support. You have to set healthy boundaries, and you have to take breaks when needed, and you have to talk to someone. And for both the survivors and supporter, you have to avoid burnout. You have to avoid burnout because burnout is going to be you triggering, lead all those triggers back. And why self-care matters. So self-care, it prevents emotional exhaustion, it helps maintain effective support, and it promotes long-term well-being. You might doing it all, you don't might not see the effects of it today or even in a week time, but in a year time you will see the effects of it. So, key takeaway. So, every support survivor, every victim experience is valid. Support must be empathetic and patient. So, words and action matter, and you have to take care of yourself while supporting others. And we have to create a safe, non-judgmental, safe space, sorry. And we have to validate the survivor's experience. And we have to challenge, we've been talking about this since we began, we have to challenge those harmful societal narrative, victim blaming, and we have to be advocates for trauma-informed care. So we have to stand with survivors. We have to be the voice to help break the silence, and we have to promote understanding and compassion because support can make a very big difference between silence and healing. So I'm seeing some new comments in the chat. So I'm seeing Miss Mac. Miss Watson saying perpetrators allow their minds to wander when they have no self-discipline. And I'm seeing, yes, community support is very important. And I'm seeing Carrie's type. I know that many times when we speak of serial assault, we speak of the male being the perpetrator. What about the men who are victims of sexual assault? They are oftentimes ignored. And that is so true. And that is why we have to start from a very young age, start by educating not just our young men but also little young girls, because it goes back, oh, he wanted it. Because, and and I'm seeing Miss Lawrence saying that consent does not just come down to no means no. A yes can be forced, a yes can be coerced. And if you need to convince your partner they're not on board, if your partner, if you're the partner being coerced, you need to leave. Even though person might say it's not that simple for you to get up and leave, take your time. You have to start by saving, your money, making a plan, reach out to the necessary agencies that are there to help. They're trying. Okay, and I'm seeing that I am at the end of the presentation. Does anyone have any question before we close for tonight? Oh, does anybody have any question? I'm seeing that I'm at the end of a presentation.
All right, Watson. Oh,
Really?
you might.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, the feedback. Yes, so thank you, Miss Watson, for that. This was a very informative session. She did a wonderful job. She did a wonderful job. You wouldn't even know that she was a counseling intern. She sounded like she's been in the field for a couple of years. You did amazing, Danya. I'm so proud of you and thank you for bringing the information. Yes, again, I keep on learning new things, which is good for me and also for you because you can take it in your daily life and share it with others. Now, at this moment, I would like to, I don't want anybody to leave yet, but I would like Miss Harvey to come to do the intro, the vote of thanks for Miss Watson. Miss
Thank
Harvey,
you.
are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Good night. On behalf of everyone present, I just want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for your presentation on supporting survivors, support, care, and understanding. Your discussion on the emotional responses survivors experience was very insightful, and the way you explain how to offer support through empathy, patience, and the confidentiality really stood out. I really appreciate how clearly you outline the do's and don'ts when supporting someone. It was practical and something we can truly apply. Your emphasis on self care for both survivors and supporters was especially important. It was a powerful reminder that while supporting others, we must also take care of ourselves. We don't want to burn out. Ms. Watson, again, thank you for sharing your knowledge, time, and compassion with us. It truly made an impact.
Yes, thank you once again. Can I get some applauses in the chat, some commendations from Miss Scott? Daniel, you did wonderful. I love that presentation. That was a lot of important information and it was well needed, to be honest, because sometimes we don't know what to say to survivors. And the things that we do say, it turns them off and pushes them into isolation and silence. Now, before everyone goes, I have if you saw the poster, you will see that we have a special guest speaker that will be on for tonight. And if you're on Instagram, you might know her. She is Miss Ashanti Brown. She's a survivor that spoke out about her experience, and she's not an advocate. I might add, she's an advocate for sexual violence, and she's here to share her story and share how she was supported during her experience and what she would want from us as a nation, as a community to do for her and other survivors. So, can we all welcome Miss Brown to the floor?
Hello, everyone. Good night. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, we're hearing.
Yes,